Most retirees think choosing between RMDs and Roth conversions is a math problem. But after working with hundreds of families, I've learned something surprising. This decision has far less to do with tax brackets and far more to do with who you are as a retiree. Many people watching this video should aggressively convert to Roth IRAs. Others should simply accept RMDs and really never look back. And the difference between the two isn't what most people think. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the real reason why you might choose Roth conversions, but more importantly, 3 types of retirees that could potentially ignore Roth conversions entirely. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Ben. I've been a financial advisor focusing on retirement planning for almost 20 years, and I want to help you have an even better retirement. If you watch a lot of retirement YouTube like I do, you'd think that RMDs are a retirement disaster waiting to happen. This tax time bomb that's going to blow up in your face the moment you turn 73. And the message is always the same, right? RMDs are bad, Roth conversions are good. And honestly, I'm as guilty as the next guy. There can be a lot of value in Roth conversions for the right client. But here's the truth that you won't hear anywhere else. Not everybody needs to fear RMDs. Not everybody needs to do Roth conversions. And not everybody needs to focus on the perfect RMD. This is where most retirees start down the wrong path because they assume this problem is a math problem. It's really not. It's a psychological problem. As we like to say, it is a noodle problem and not a numbers problem. Well, why is that? Well, because RMDs don't hit everybody the same way. Now, to understand whether RMDs are a problem for you, you need to know exactly what the RMD age represents, in my opinion. When you reach RMD age, which is 73 or 75, depending on your birth year, 75 if you were born in 1960 or later, when you hit that age, you've reached the midpoint of your retirement, right? If you retire around age 60 and you die around age 90, RMD age in your mid-70s, that's really the halfway mark. And by the halfway mark, something important has happened in your retirement in that you've survived sequence of returns risk or large parts of it. You've bridged the expensive part of your pre-Medicare years. You're already on Social Security, that's locked in. And you've lived through enough retirement to see what normal looks like, right? You aren't as surprised by the surprises anymore. And that midpoint really creates that psychological shift. And this shift determines whether or not you should convert to Roth IRAs or simply accept RMDs. By the midpoint of retirement, you're going to understand your portfolio and what it feels like to live off of your savings. You're going to understand your benefits. It's no longer going to feel like you're running out of money. That fear, based on me doing this for a long time and for lots and lots of people, that fear has largely left the building at that midpoint. So at that midpoint, I often see retirees fall into one of 2 groups. Group number 1 is that I want to maintain control. I don't want a forced spike in my income from RMDs. And then group 2 is forced income actually fits my lifestyle and my values, and I want or I need my hand forced to spend more. I want some accountability to spend more. So we're going to look at each. Some retirees just can't stand the idea of being forced into taking income they didn't choose. For them, the IRS forcing out withdrawals larger than their lifestyle needs feels like the opposite of freedom. So those retirees are control-oriented, they're tax-sensitive, budget-aware, and they're worried that forced income that they don't need might break their plan. These are the people that benefit, I think, the most from Roth IRA conversions, especially during that first decade of retirement, because what they want from their retirement is they want predictability, they want voluntary, proactive tax decisions, and they want an RMD that never exceeds their desired spending. Now, for this group, Roth conversions are the tool that helps them move towards a perfect RMD, which we define as the point where RMDs are equal to or less than what they were going to take out for their retirement budget anyway. It's sort of self-satisfying. So these retirees convert not because RMDs are bad, but because they really just don't want surprises and they don't want to overpay the IRS. But here's the part that nobody talks about. Some retirees actually like RMDs. And for them, conversions would just solve a problem that they don't have and or just their style of investing. They would prefer to take a wait-and-see approach to tax planning. This could be a good strategy. And the best part is you would never have to watch another Roth conversion video if you fall into one of these 3 types of retirees. So number 1, the charitable giver. Some retirees genuinely prefer rising RMDs because those increasing withdrawals become a built-in giving accelerator through qualified charitable distributions, or we'll call them QCDs today. These retirees were really never planning on spending all that forced income anyway. Their intention this whole time was to give more in the second half of retirement when that fear of running out of money has really largely subsided. RMDs simply nudge that generosity forward. It's really a forcing mechanism to force you to give more money to charity. Now, if you aren't familiar with qualified charitable distributions, a QCD is a gift made directly from your IRA to a qualified charity, and it can begin once you reach age 70 and a half. The charity receives the full amount, and for you, that distribution is non-taxable. So if you withdrew $100,000 from your IRA this year and you give $25,000 directly to charity through a QCD, only $75,000 would show up as taxable income on your tax return. is essentially as if that $25,000 gift never existed as income in the first place. There's no deduction to claim. It simply reduces the taxable portion of your IRA withdrawal, and it satisfies dollar for dollar your RMD. It's really one of the most tax-efficient ways to fund charitable giving in retirement. And as of current rules, individuals can give up to $108,000 per year per spouse via QCDs. It was, up until very recently, kind of anchored at $100,000. Now it's going to be indexed for inflation. Interestingly, married couples filing jointly can each make their own QCD up to the annual limit for their respective IRAs. So it really could be $108,000 and $108,000, presuming that your IRAs are, a big enough size. But here's an important clarification that I share with essentially every retiree that I meet. You can never come out ahead on taxes by giving money away to charity. So if you donate $100 to charity and your effective tax rate is 25%, yes, you definitely avoided paying $25 in taxes, but you still spent $100, right? You're not making money by giving away money. That's just not how deductions work. Now, credits we could make a case for, but really, you give to charity because you care about the mission, because it aligns with your values, because it makes your retirement feel meaningful, not because you're trying to beat the IRS. We don't want to chase deductions, whether we're working or in retirement. Usually that doesn't make sense. The math doesn't pencil out. So the mindset should be giving first, tax optimization second. If you know you're going to give the money away anyway, well then by all means we want to structure that in the most tax efficient way possible. But don't let the tax tail wag the dog. So this is exactly why some retirees welcome larger RMDs, not because they love taxes, but because the growing RMD simply grows the amount that they intended to give all along. So that's number one, the charitable giver. Number two is the generational giver. So these retirees want to help their kids and grandkids, but they didn't quite feel comfortable doing it early on in retirement. The fear of running out of money was still too strong in that first decade of retirement, but once they hit that midpoint of retirement, the point where RMDs begin, and a lot of those big financial uncertainties are behind them, something starts to shift, right? That anxiety starts to fade. The numbers make sense. They've been living off their portfolio for a while, and they're ready to start to realize that they're actually going to be fine with their retirement income. And that's really when these RMDs that are going to be increasing can actually help with their giving. So suddenly forced income is arriving in their checking account every month, really whether they want it or not. And then each year that amount generally increases. Whether you get a year older or your account balances go up or both, that's going to increase your RMD every year. So for many super savers, that forced income feels like something that they've been waiting for without maybe even realizing it. And that's permission. Permission to start giving, permission to share, permission to start moving money to the next generation while they're still alive and they're able to watch their family enjoy these gifts. So some retirees almost need that RMD as that forcing mechanism. Left to their own devices, they would never voluntarily pull that money out of their IRA for themselves. But when the IRS forces that withdrawal, then it reframes that entire decision. They say, well, I wasn't really going to spend all this money anyway. I might as well do something meaningful and something useful with it. It's like extra money. And that becomes the psychological green light then to gift any extra money that shows up. And this is where understanding the actual gifting rules becomes really important because the tax code is actually more flexible than a lot of people think. So as of 2025, the annual gift exclusion is $19,000 per recipient, meaning that you can gift $19,000 to any individual without triggering a gift tax return. In fact, everybody watching this video can gift me $19,000, no IRS paperwork needed. In fact, I'll leave my Venmo in the video description. Married couples can double up and they can combine their exclusions to gift $38,000 per recipient per year. So if you have multiple children and they're married, you can see how these gifts can really multiply pretty quickly. So you could give your child's spouse, and your spouse could give to each of them as well, all within that annual exclusion. But it gets even better than that because here's the part that most people misunderstand. If you give more than $19,000 to one person, you don't owe gift tax and your kids do not owe income tax. Really nothing dramatic happens at all. All that occurs is you file IRS Form 709, which simply reports that the amount above the annual exclusion counts towards your lifetime gift and estate tax exemption. And that exemption is really massive. So for 2025, an individual can give away almost $14 million during life or at death before owing any federal gift or estate tax. And married couples can double it up for nearly $28 million of potential tax-free transfer. So if you exceed the $19,000 annual exclusion, all you're really doing is reducing that lifetime exemption by the amount of the excess. And for basically everybody watching this video, myself included, probably, unless a bunch of you hit my Venmo, that lifetime exclusion is never going to come close to being fully used. So bottom line is this. If RMDs force more income than you need and you're a natural generational giver, you can give confidently and generously and in an estate tax-friendly way. And forced income can actually be the mechanism that helps you share your wealth while you're still alive and can enjoy people enjoying your money. So number 1 was charitably minded, number 2 was the generational giver, and number 3 is the tax bracket insensitive retiree. So not everybody's going to be subject to IRMA. That's the extra amount we have to pay for Medicare if our income is too high. Not everybody's going to jump a whole bunch of tax brackets. Not everybody has $1 million plus IRAs, right? If your RMD won't spike you into a painful tax zone, or it won't meaningfully affect your lifestyle or how much you pay for Medicare, then you might not need Roth conversions at all. And here's the kicker. Really, RMDs essentially, they're never going to cause somebody to run out of money because RMDs adjust down when markets fall. The real dollar impact matches the size of your remaining portfolio. In fact, in some years, some down market years, I think 2009 and 2020 come to mind, the IRS actually suspended RMDs for those years. So it's certainly not guaranteed, but there is some precedent moving forward that this has happened in the past. So really, the IRS can force your hand to take more income, but they're not going to empty your pockets. RMDs are really never going to be the thing that drives you to bankruptcy because, that will lower with your portfolio balance should something terrible happen. So now that you understand a little bit more about RMDs versus Roth conversions, if you'd like to learn more, go ahead and click the link below, book some time with me, and I'll show you how we can optimize RMDs versus Roth conversions for your particular plan. And if this video helped to make your retirement even better, go ahead and let the algorithm know by hitting the like button, and I will see you on the next one.